भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः। ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। चैतन्यं सर्वगं सर्वं सर्वभूतगुहाशयं यत्सर्वविषयातीतं तस्मै सर्वविदे नमः। Verse 37. Samsarinam kathattvastam prakrutam tvadhunochyate mukhabhaso ya adarshe dharmo nanyatarasya saha द्वयोरेकस्य चेत् धर्मः वियुक्ते न्यतरे भवेत्। संसारिणाम कथा तो आस्ताम. Let us set aside the katha or the discussion about the samsari. Samsari means a transmigrating soul, meaning that the various views other people have about the jiva or about the samsari. Who is the samsari? Who is the simple translation of samsari, samsarati, one who transmigrates. But samsari means who is the sukhi dukhi karta bhokta, jivatma. And various opinions are there about what is the nature of this jiva samsari who undergoes the process of transmigration, undergoes the sukha dukkha, kartritvam, bhoktritvam, and various views about that samsari, jiva-atma were presented, that he is vikara of consciousness, he is a part of consciousness, he is the santaram, the very series of momentary consciousness. So these various views are there. Let us set them aside. And let us come to prakrita, meaning the topic under discussion, which is our view of who the samsari is. Our view is that Atma or Brahman itself is samsari. When you say Brahman is samsari, Brahman is nitya muktam, is limitless, meaning that bondage cannot be there. Looking at Brahman or Atma, bondage or limitedness cannot coexist with Atma. So when you say that Atma is samsari, that means samsara is mithya, that is very clear. Because in Atma, samsara, limitedness cannot be there. Na jayate mrite va vipaschit, there cannot be birth and death in self-consciousness because it does not lend itself to change or transform. There is no second thing that can affect it to bring about modification or change or birth. Therefore, looking at Atma the way Upanishad reveals, Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma, Vijnanam Anandam Brahma, Nijayate Mrite Va Vipasit. So, this is how the Upanishads unfold the nature of the self or Brahman. We start from there. Samsara or limitedness, sense of smallness, inadequacy, and therefore desire, craving, all of these are not possible for Atma. Not only that, but Atma is the only entity. Ekameva, there is nothing other than the self, nothing other than Brahman. Atma va idame ekeva grasid nanyat kinchan mishat. All there is Sat or Brahman or Atma. So this limitedness, samsara is just not possible. It doesn't make sense. Let us put it this way. And still we think that we are experiencing samsara. I was born, I am going to die, I am karta, bhukta, sukhi, dukhi. The experience that, or we feel that that is what we are, also has to be dealt with, has to be addressed. So not the real samsara is being addressed, but my feeling that I am a samsari, that is being addressed. Understand that? Whether it is a valid feeling, am I justified in taking myself to be a samsari, to be a transmigrating soul, to be karta, bhokta? It is not based on what the Upanishads reveal about my true nature. But the only entity is Atma, therefore the teacher says, what is our view about samsari? That Atma is samsari. But on account of the essential nature of Atma cannot be samsari, so Atma is as though samsari. The consciousness, limitless, is as though samsari. How? Because there is ignorance. It is the nature of ignorance to reflect consciousness, meaning that in presence of consciousness, ignorance gets enlivened and becomes active. If ignorance is not enlivened, then other anarthas, other results cannot come, outcomes cannot come. Thus, in deep sleep state, the ignorance is not active. That time, the sense of limitedness, etc., cannot be there. So ignorance or maya also should become active and enlivened. Then maya will manifest its effects of creating false notions, of identification with what I am not, and creating false notions, and creating therefore the notion of samsara. Then in a rope snake, the snake is a notion, not a reality. That means that there is ignorance, rope ignorance, that brings about that. So also for the limitless self, there is, let me accept limitless self, because Upanishad says so. And so we want to analyze all the reason why do I think differently about myself. And Upanishad says I am limited. Why do I think I am limited? It is not enough to say that you are wrong. It is necessary to explain why that notion of limitedness came. So Vedanta does not want to brush aside the problem that I have, even though it says, it's not legitimate, but does not want to brush aside the problem. Vedanta seeks to explain why do I feel the way I feel about myself. Ignorance. And then the product of ignorance is adhyasa, identification. From the sense of ahankara, sense of individuality, the I notion, and then subsequent products of ignorance. When ignorance, the cause gets enlightened, or enlivened rather, then the ahankara and subsequent karya or the outcomes also will get enlivened. So just as that is nature of ignorance to say reflect the consciousness, that's the model. It is the nature of ignorance to get enlivened. How can ignorance get enlivened? How can a water in the bucket in a dark room get lighted up? So there must be reflection. So therefore, in ignorance also, there must be reflection of consciousness, because of which this is as though the enlivenment of the ignorance. Then ignorance acts as though it is an enlivened entity. They have a model of pratibimba. So he is accepted here for explaining. Not to stretch that example to infinity, and all aspects of pratibimba cannot apply here. They need not apply. What is most applicable is what the pratibimba does. How pratibimba, reflection, enlivens the medium of reflection. And therefore there are subsequent consequences. So the teacher said that Atma or consciousness, as reflected in ignorance, from which there arises the sense of individuality or the I notion, so that is the samsari. Atma is samsari through ignorance and the I notion or ahankara. So that is the prakrutam. That is a statement that we have made. And since other opinions exist, we have to analyze whether or not there is any validity in them. So what is the nature of this reflection or jiva? Is it real? If reflection is real, the jiva also is real. Therefore here is a deliberation upon the nature of reflection in a mirror. Reflection of face in a mirror. Mukhabhasoya adarshe, that mukhabhasa, the reflection of the face which is in the mirror. Now there are two entities, there is mirror and there is face. Dharmo nanyatarasya saha, that mukhabhasa, the reflection of face, is neither dharma, an attribute of either the mirror or the face. Reflection is not because it's the nature or the attribute of mirror or attribute of face. Something in the mirror is there because the reflection is there. Oh, something is there in the face because of reflection. There is nothing in the face which can be responsible for the reflection. Nor is there anything in mirror which can be traced as a cause of reflection. Is the mirror in some way cause of reflection? Wherever the mirror is, reflection will be. Is the face the cause of reflection? Then wherever face is, the reflection will be. That's not the case. It's only when both of them are there and placed in a specific manner, that mirror is in front of the face. When that setup is there, that is when we find the reflection taking place. Dvayo ekasya chet dharma vyukte anyatare bhaved. Dvayo ekasya dharma chet. If reflection is dharma or attribute of one of the two, either mirror or the face, then vyukte anyatare bhave, then even the other is, if reflection is the attribute of face, then you don't require a mirror for reflection of that because the face is responsible. If reflection is the attribute or dharma of mirror, then you don't require face because mirror will produce that. That's not the case. Vyukte anyatare bhavet. If it is the nature or dharma, attribute of either the mirror or the face, then the reflection should be there even when one of them is not present. All you need is one because mirror's nature, dharma it is, or face's dharma it is. That's not so. न च एवमस्ति अतः नान्यतरस्य धर्मः सवन पक्ष. If you look at the Tika of the verse 37, second line, yoyam adarshe mukhavāso drishyate. Adarshe in the mirror, yoyam mukhavāso drishyate, the reflection of the face which is seen in the mirror. Sakim mukhadarshyo anyatarasya yasya anyatarasya dharma. So this first, is it the dharma or the attribute of anyatarasya, one of the two? Of what? Mukhadarshayo anyatarasya means one of the mukha and adarsha. Is it the dharma of the mukha, face or mirror? One. Kim va mukhaseva dharma. Or it is only the dharma of the mukham or the face. Athva dvayoho api dharma. What is the nature of both of them? Both mirror and face both. Vastvantaram kinchit, or it is independent entity. So is it because of the face? Is it because of the mirror? Is it because of both face and mirror? Or is this some independent entity which doesn't depend on face and mirror? There's four, vikalpa means the alternatives are presented here. And each one is examined one after the other. So first examine whether yoyam mukhabhaso kim mukhadarshayo anyatarasya yasya kasachit dharma. Is it dharma of one of these mukhana or darpanam? So this verse said that is not so, because otherwise the reflection would exist without without one of them, which is not the case. Second paksha, kim va mukhaseva dharma, or is reflection the dharma, the attribute of only mukha? So kalpantaram utthapayati. Kalpantaram, second kalpa, second the vikalpa option is being presented second position. Then the verse 38 says, Mukhena vyapadeshat saha Mukhaseveti chenmatam Nadarshana vidhanacha Mukhe satya vibhavata. So someone says Mukhena vyapadeshat. It's called mukhabhasa. The reflection is called mukhabhasa. Mukhena vyapadeshyate. So reflection is called reflection of face, therefore vyapadeshyate, it is indicated by mukhabhasa, not just abhasa. Since the reflection is described as the reflection of face, therefore mukhasevayati, therefore it must be the nature of or dharma of mukha, because it's called mukhabhasa. So it makes sense that the abhasa is the dharma or attribute of mukha. Iti chet matam, if that's because it is called mukhabhasa, because it is called reflection of face, therefore you say that it is dharma or attribute of face. Iti chet matam, if that is a mata or it is opinion, na, second line says na. That's not the case. Why? Adarsha anuvidhanat. The reflection cannot be the dharma or attribute of face because adarsha anuvidhanat. Reflection follows or conforms to mirror, not to face. The nature of how the reflection appears is determined by a mirror. So, adarsha anuvidhanat. Adarsha means mirror. Anuvidhanam means following, conforming to. So, reflection conforms to the mirror. Had it been the dharma of mukha, it would conform to mukham, it would look like mukha wherever it is. That's not so. How the reflection looks like is determined by mirror. Yes, face also, but then, so whether it looks straight, distorted, is all determined by mirror, and whether it is there or not is determined by mirror. The reflection is determined by mirror, not by face. Adarsha anuvidhanat. Therefore, since it follows, it conforms to the mirror, therefore, mirror has an involvement in the reflection. Mukha ikadharmatve tadayogat. If reflection was merely the dharma attribute of the face, you do not require mirror for the reflection to take place, but you require mirror, number one. Not only you require mirror, but the reflection conforms to the mirror. And the face alone is not enough for the reflection to take place. If reflection was a dharma or attribute of face, all you need is face for the reflection to take place. Not only you require mirror, at the same time the reflection follows the mirror, conforms to the idiosyncrasy of the mirror. Tadayoga, therefore, it cannot be the dharma of merely the face. The mirror also is involved. Then, so na, adarsha anuvidhanat, number one. Second, mukhe sati abhibhavatah. If reflection is the nature, the dharma of mukha, then if the mukha is there, reflection must be there. If orange is the dharma of this cloth, then where the cloth is, orange must be there, orangeness must be there. So also reflection is the dharma of mukha, then where mukha is, reflection must be there. But no, mukha is there, reflection is not there. Kincha sati api mukhe says, mukhe sati avibhasati avibhavata. Even when mukha is there, reflection is not there, darpana viyukte. If darpana is not there, adarsha is not there, mirror is not there, reflection is not. Even when the face is there, it cannot be the attribute of face. Avibhavatah means adarsanat. We find that in absence of mirror, even though the face is, reflection is not, therefore reflection cannot be dharma or attribute of face. Alright. Trutiyam. Athava dvayoho api dharma. Is it the nature of the two of them? Meaning, is it the combination of two of them that somehow brings about the, is it presence of two that brings about the reflection? That's it, Trutiyam Kalpam. So, Dvayoho eva, next verse is Dvayore veti chetanna Dvayore vapya darshanat Adrusyasya sato drushti Syadrahos chandra suryayoho Raho prageva vastutvam Siddham Shastra Pramanatah Chaya Pakshe Tvavastutvam Tasya Syat Purva Yuktitah Dvayoho Eveti. All you require is these two entities, the face and the mirror, the reflection is there, so it is the dharma of the combination of two. Neither only of the mirror, nor only of the face, but then of the combination of the two. But then, dvayo if they say, so if this is your contention that reflection is the dharma or the attribute of the two of them in combination, then that also cannot be dvayoho eva pi adarshana. Both are there and still reflection is not there. Face is there, mirror is there. See, mirror must be only facing me, Only when that kind of a combination takes place, then there is reflection. Face is there and mirror is that way, looking in different direction. There is no reflection. Therefore, you cannot say that it is the dharma or attribute of the two of them. That both are present, therefore the reflection is no, both must be there in a certain orientation, not otherwise. Dvayapi adarshanadevaiti sambandha. The mukhadarshayho vyuktayoho avaso drishyate. They are vyukta, they are separated, not facing each other, etc. Not face is there and mirror is there, then reflection doesn't take place. Nabi Sanyukta, even when they are together also it doesn't take place unless they are oriented properly. Even though they are in vicinity of each other, then also reflection will not take place unless there is a proper orientation of the mirror and the face. Mirror is here, face is here. Just because the two are there does not mean that there will be reflection. Nabi sanyukta ho evam dharma yatha kathanchana sanyukta tad darshan prasangat na tatha drishyate. Yatha kathanchana sanyuktayoho api tad darshan prasangat. Because if all you require is the association of the two, then in any way the yatha, whichever way they are associated, the reflection must be there. But no, when they are associated in a certain way, when a certain orientation is there, then only the reflection is there. So merely the presence of the mirror and the face does not assure the reflection. If reflection was dharma of these two entities side by side or in vicinity of each other, that no mirror must be in vicinity of the face. It is in vicinity, so turn around or turn this way. There is no reflection. So, yatha kathanchana sanyuktayopi. If you so know, sanyukta means both of them are associated, related. But yatha kathanchana, if they are related in just any manner, the reflection doesn't take place. Because if the two of them were enough to create reflection, however they are oriented, the reflection will take place. But two must be oriented in a certain way, then only reflection takes place. Therefore, you cannot say that it is the dharma of both of them. Tatha drishyate tasman na dvayoho dharma. So you cannot say that is dharma of both of them together. Neither dharma of the adarsha mirror, no dharma of face, nor dharma of two of them. Just two of them. If two of them were enough, that wherever the association of the mirror and face is reflection, then wherever the association is there should take place. But no, there must be not only association, an orientation must be there. If they are not oriented in a certain way, then the reflection doesn't take place. Vastvantaram kinchita. But then, but the reflection is there anyway. See, all these kind of combinations don't happen. I mean, they can't explain. Then, tariyastu paramata vastvantaram eva avasa iti. Then let us say that reflection is an independent entity. Independent of the mirror and face and orientation, etc., combination. That reflection exists on its own. Tasma na dvayo dharma, therefore vastvantaram, it is not dharma of each one of them or both of them together. Adrusyasya satah drushti syat. Satah, that which exists. Satah drushti. Drushti darshanam, or seeing of what is adrushya, but which is not visible. Meaning that something is there, but not visible to you, it can still be there. Now there's a unique, the position here, that something exists, but not visible to you. So, reflection exists, but not visible to you. You say this oriented, but then it's there. And so when you see the reflection in a certain orientation of face and mirror, it is not the reflection that's created, reflection that is already existing appears. So for what is already existing, but not evident, requires something. So when the reflection becomes evident, with the face and mirror being there, in a certain orientation, it is not that a non-existent reflection is created, it is existent reflection becomes evident. You follow? Something is there, you don't see it. So just because you see doesn't mean that it is created, it was there on its own. And something can be there on its own but not seen. And certain circumstances make it seen. So it has become manifest, not that it is created. The sun is shining all right, and the clouds are there, therefore, even though the sun is existing, it is not evident. And the clouds move away, the sun that existed becomes evident. So just because the reflection is evident doesn't mean that it is created, so it doesn't require either face or mirror, it's on its own. That also can be paksha. Adrushasya satoho. Satah I should, satah drushti. Satah means fifth case or sixth case. Satah of sat. Adrushasya, that which is not visible or evident, but which exists, that it can come, drashti, meaning you can see something, become evident to you. For that example is given. Syat, so drushti syat, that is where the comma is, rahoho chandra suryayoho. There is an entity called Rahu. So Rahu is there, but not evident to you. Chandra Surya, when Chandra or Surya is there, that is when you see Rahu. In an eclipse, you see Rahu, because Rahu has swallowed Chandra or Rahu has swallowed Surya. So when the swallowing takes place, called eclipse, that is when this Rahu becomes evident. Not that Rahu was not there. Rahu exists, adrushya meaning that it is not evident, becomes evident when the sun and or moon are there, sun or moon are there. So when you see that Rahu during an eclipse, is not that a non-existent Rahu has now come into perception, an already existing Rahu, but not evident, has become evident. So then, so satah vidyamanasya saravai karni adrushyasya. Like Rahu is there, but you can't see. Chandre surye upado. So Chandra or Surya becomes upadhi. Becomes an incident for the Rahu to become evident. Kadachit drushti darshanam yatha. Drushti means darshanam. So sometimes Rahu is seen when the sun or moon is there. So that establishes Rahu is there. Rahu requires certain conditions to take place to become evident. As I said, the sun is there, requires certain condition. That is what? The removal of the clouds to become evident. But Rahu is better example. The Rahu is there. Requires a certain specific condition to take. It's called upadhi. A special condition required for something to happen. So sun or moon become the upadhi, special condition, situation for the Rahu to become evident to us. Tatha mukhabhasasyapi. So also mukhabhasa, the reflection of the face, vastu bhutasya, is real, meaning existing on its own. And you don't see it. Doesn't mean that reflection is not there, reflection is the reality. Mukha sanmukha darpana upadau darshanam. Upadhi means a special condition should take place for the reflection to be seen. Mukha sanmukha dar. So darpana. Vad darshan. So sanmukha, mukha sanmukha vad darpana upadho. Mukha sanmukha vad darpana upadho. So darpanam must be mukha sanmukham. Not just darpanam, but only when darpanam, the mirror is facing the face. So that is a special condition required, upadhi, for the already existing reflection to become evident. So when you see a reflection, is it the reflection is created now? It always was there, and now a condition is created when an already existing reflection prakat ho jata hai, becomes evident. Somebody just appears, hey, prakat ho gaya. Some people have a habit, just they manifest from nowhere, So reflection is like this, becomes manifest when this condition is created. Therefore, like Rahu is an existing entity, requires a certain special condition of sun or the moon to happen for Rahu to become evident. So also the reflection is an entity existing on its own and requires a certain condition. Mukha sanmukha darpana. That the mirror must be in front of the face. That is upadhi, a special condition when it is there, then an already existing reflection becomes evident. Ityaha. Vaishamya drushyate dushayate. This is an inept example. This illustration is not right. That an existing Rahu becomes evident, that is not proven. The Rahu is an existing entity, and that becomes evident now, it's a debatable point. So second verse said, we read that Raho prage. So Purva Pakshi says Raho prage vastutam siddham shastra pramanatah. Chandradi uparagat prageva jyotish shastra pramanatah. Puranadi shastra pramanatah Raho samhike yasya vastutvam siddham nishchitam. That there is an entity graha called Rahu. Is Jyotish Shastra Pramanatah. Jyotish Shastra says that there is Rahu. Oh, Purana, the Shastra will tell you the story of Rahu, how he was cut off, etc. That's Purana. During distribution of ambrosia, how this Samhikeya, even Samhikeya means Simhika's son. His hair was chopped off. So Purana says that there is a Rahu, and Jyotish Shastra also says. So by this evidence, the existence of Rahu is established. That's the Purva Pakshi. So that Rahu is not debatable, not debated because these two evidences are there. Vastutvam siddham nishchitam. The Rahu is there, is already ascertained. Alright, number one. So as far as Rahu is concerned, the existence of Rahu is ascertained by Jyotish Shastra or Purana. Is there some Purana or some Shastra which says existence of reflection? You claim that reflection is an already existing entity. Where do you find, who says that? Which Pramana says that? When you say that Rahu is an existing entity, Jyotish Shastra says that. Purana says that. So let us say that Rahu is but Vishamatam is, so for the existence of Rahu, we have Pramanam in the form of Jyotish Shastra and Purana. We have an independent Pramanam, meaning the independent evidence for establishing that face also is a reflection is existing entity. Where does it say? Na iha tatha nischayakam pramanamasti iti shesha. So here this is to be added, shesha. Raho pragaya vastutam siddham shastra pramanatah. Yeah, first line. You would add na iha tatha nischayakam pramanamasti iti shesha. For Rahu there is nischayakam pramanam, there is an evidence that is adequate to determine the existence of Rahu. There is no pramanam, no evidence here which proves or which establishes or reveals the existence of reflection. There is no Shastra other than your own mind. Where did you get the idea that reflection is an existing entity like Rahu is? Nahi mukhadarpanayoho sambandhat puram urdham va tad vyatirikta vastuta mukhavasasya kenachit pramayana kvapi sambhavita ityartha. The mukhadarpanayoho sambandhat purvam. Before the sambandha or the association of mukha and darpana, before that reflection existed, we don't find it stated anywhere. And when that association is not there, then also that, see, if the reflection is an independent entity, it should exist regardless of mukham and darpanam. It should exist before, like Rahu exists even before eclipse and continue to exist after, because it comes again, fellow. Then the second eclipse takes place means Rahu is still there. So that is the pramanam or evidence for establishing the existence of Rahu. Is there a pramanam that says that the phase of face existed? Before the mirror and face came into association, that the reflection existed. And the reflection continues to exist even after that association is not there, then we can say that the reflection exists on its own. But that kenachit pramana kvapi na sambhavita, we do not see anywhere which says that there is an entity called the reflection of the face, exists independently. You don't find it anywhere. So, meaning that example of Rahu is not an apt example to establish the reality of face. That's the idea. Then we question the reality of Rahu also. But accepting that Rahu exists, as you say, by your Jyotish, Pramana, Purana, etc., then also that example does not apply to face, because face does not have reflection. The reflection doesn't have the benefit of Pramanam that Rahu has. Rahu vastutvam angikritya Darsthandika Anurgunatvam Uktam. This is, we accepted the existence of Rahu and said that that illustration is not apt to establish the reality of face. Idanim tasyapi nasti vastutvam. Now we say, who says even Rahu also exists? Iti avasasya. Therefore, for second reason, Rahu cannot be the drishtanta for existing the independent of reflection, because the evidence that is there for existence of Rahu is similar evidence does not exist for reflection. And secondly, who says Rahu is? Now second one. Idanim tasyapi nasti vastutvam. Tasyami Rahu. Even Rahu also is not there, we say. And therefore, if Rahu was there, it can become a drishtanta for reflection. Rahu itself is not there. So, second line said, Chaya pakshe tu avastutvam tasya syat purva yuktitaha chaya pakshe. The paksha means the opinion. There is the opinion that the Rahu is merely a shadow planet and not a real planet. Meaning that what you call Rahu is a shadow of earth on sun or moon, when there is an alignment of these three, sun, moon and earth. So the sun, if reflection of earth takes place on the moon, so that is why you see, what you see is the chaya or reflection of earth on the moon, which is what you call eclipse. Oh, similarly also, for the sun also, the moon comes in the way for you to see that sun, and that is how you find it, call it an eclipse. So-called eclipse is not a thing. It is because of the alignment of these three entities that prevents you from seeing the whole moon or whole sun. And because sun and moon both are round, therefore, that also looks round. So you think that is falling. Sounds good as far as the stories are concerned. But Chaya Paksha. Paksha means of the opinion that Rahu is a shadow planet, or what you call Rahu is the shadow of earth or the moon, then there is no such thing as Rahu. So Bhumyadi Chaya Rahu iti Geshanjit Paksha Bhumyadi. So when it comes to the eclipse of the moon, it is a reflection of earth. Comes to the eclipse of sun, it is the moon that is blocking, so it is chaya or the shadow of the earth or the moon, which is what you call Rahu, eclipse. Iti Keshanjit Paksha. Even then also this Paksha existed. That Rahu is a shadow planet. It is a shadow. Tasmin Chaya Pakshetu. In that Paksha means in that position, opinion or view, that Rahu is a Chaya. Tasya Rahu avastutvam syat. If you accept that opinion, then Rahu is not an existing entity at all. So, Rahu does not exist, cannot become example for a reflection. मुखाभासो आदर्श इत्यादि पूर्वोक्त युक्तितः युक्ति संचार इत्यादि. Similarly also, reflection also becomes avastu. Rahu is avastu, reflection was avastu. We also said earlier, you cannot say reflection is. Because the reflection is means the reflection independently exists, then it must be there under all conditions, which is not when the face and the mirror are not there. Nor can we say reflection does not exist, because had it not existed, you can't see it. Satchetna bhadyeta, asatchetna pratiyeta. If reflection was non-existent, it won't be perceptible to you. Reflection was real, it would always be there, which is not the case. That's how anirvachaniyam, reflection cannot be categorized as sat or asat. Sad asatbhyam anirvachaniyam. It's called mithya. So already it has been established. And therefore, even with the example of Rahu, etc., which examples are inapt examples, we come back to that position that, so it is not proven that the reflection is the dharma of mirror, dharma of face, dharma of two of them, or independently existing. None of these four pakshas are valid. Then the vastu chaya smrute. Now, if you come back to the shadow thing, that very interesting example was given that chaya also means shadow. So shadow also is real. Why is it real? Because Smriti says you should not cross the shadow, meaning you should not step over, I should say. Stepping over the shadow is as bad as stepping over the person whose shadow it is. A shadow is as reverential as the person is. It is shadow of your guru. Wait a minute. So you cannot cross over guru, you should not cross over the shadow of the guru. Or a devata means, a divine figure or a murti, whatever. And snataka, this, that, etc. So all this was stated that the fact that the Smriti says that you should not step over a shadow means the shadow is real, otherwise they would not tell you that. If shadow is non-existent entity, then stepping over should not cause any consequence, isn't it? The fact that stepping over shadow causes consequences, you incur a sin. That means shadow must be a real entity, otherwise these great sages would not tell you not to step over the shadow. So this is that. So therefore, na kramet kamatas chayam guruvadehe. Guruvadehe chayam kamatah na kramet. Deliberately you should not step over. If you happen to step over unknowingly or unconsciously, it's all right, pardonable. We know that this is the shadow of the Guru or a revered one and still you cross over. Then it's definite offense. That means that shadow also must have a reality, otherwise how can stepping over shadow become an offense? Secondly, shadow has a reality because when you sit in the shadow, you feel cool, you feel pleasant, and that, so for a person, when somebody is sitting under a shadow of a tree or something, that pleasantness is very evident on the face of the person. Madhuryam is there, coolness is there, the pleasantness is there, the shadow has caused all of this, therefore also shadow is real. So chaya there means shadow. And that shadow has a reality, was in a way presented for these two reasons. That number one, that the great sages of Smriti say that you should not deliberately step on the shadow of a revered one. And secondly, when sitting under a shadow, you feel cool, you feel pleasant, which is what the shadow has done. So, shadow creates a negative effect and shadow creates a positive effect. Only a real entity can cause negative or positive effect. Therefore, shadow is reality. And so reflection is reality. Shadow is example. So mukhabhasa also, this was the example. So that is being addressed here. So going back to verse 41, vastu chaya smrute ityatra. We just read that 37th verse. Ityatra chaya vastutve smriti pramanamiti uktam. In that verse, the chaya or shadow is a vastu, is an entity on its own. For that, this smriti was given as pramanam. Smriti which says that chaya can cause the unfavorable consequence if you step over that. Chaya can cause favorable consequences if you sit underneath. So chaya can do both. And entity that exists can help you or hurt you both. Then you can say it is there. Iti yuktam tatraha. So the next verse is Chaya kranter nishedoyam natu vastutva sadhakah nahyarthantar nishtham sata vakyam arthantaram vaded. So now we come to analyze that Vakya. What is it the Vakya conveys? So when, say Yajnavalkya said, na kramet kamatas guruvade, let's take that Vakya. Guruvade chayam kamatah na kramet, should not step over the shadow of Guru and other revered entities deliberately. This is Nishedha. And therefore also the negative consequences, hurtful consequences of violating that order, violating that command. So chaya akrante nishedavayam, this verse said. So when it says you should not deliberately step over the shadow, it says this Vakya only says what you should not do, nishedha. Chaya akrante am nishedha. When it says you should not deliberately step over a shadow, all it means you should not step over, that's all. Natu vastutva, that doesn't say that chaya is real. It says you should not step over a shadow. That sentence cannot be construed to mean that shadow is a real entity. Why? Ni arthantar nishtam sad vakyam artha. Because vakya can only have one artha. That may you not deliberately step over a shadow. That's the vakya. It can have only one meaning, that it prohibits you from stepping over a shadow. That's called nishedha. Then you say that means that shadow is real. One vakya cannot say two different meanings. Two independent meanings one vakya cannot say, because then you do not know which meaning to take. Therefore the basic rule of communication is, when you make a statement, it should only one meaning and not two different meanings, because the listener will not know what is the meaning in which you have uttered that sentence. So communication, unambiguous communication, no ambiguity, no doubts. So this is the rule of communication, that when you utter a sentence, it should have one meaning. And so you cannot have two different meanings. You cannot utter a sentence with keeping in mind two different meanings, because the listener will not know in which meaning you use that sentence. So, guroho chayam kamatah na akramet, means should not deliberately step over the shadow of a revered one, means it prohibits you from doing that, that's all. You additionally say, it means that chaya is real. It doesn't say that. Nor can you take this one sentence to arrive at two different meanings. Arthantar nishtam vakyam, that one vakya such as that, which arthantar, which has its, which is devoted to revealing the nisheda, the prohibition of what you should not do. Na arthantaram vadet, cannot also say that the chaya is real. That two artha cannot be there from one vakya. Meaning that nisheda vakya cannot be interpreted to mean that chaya is real. That's all. This simple mimamsa rule, rule of communication. So natu iti chaya iti shesha. So natu chayayaha vastutva sadhagacha. The one word chayayaha should be added. So chaya kranter nishedoyam. Ayam nishedha chaya akrante. This is the prohibition for stepping over the shadow. Nadu chayayaha vastutva sadhaka. One word chayayaha should be added there. It is not vastutva sadhaka. That vakya is not sadhaka establishes vastutva, the reality of chaya. The vakya means it prohibits only stepping over chaya. It does not simultaneously chaya is real because these two. Why is it so? Because arthantara vakya, which is used for one meaning, cannot be interpreted as altogether different meaning. No, chaya langhana pratisheda parama vachanam tasya vastu bodhashyati ched. Says, wait a minute, that although this the immediate meaning of the sentence is that you should not step over the shadow, why can it also not say that shadow is real? Because why should they ask you not to step over that? If the shadow did not have reality, why should they ask you that you avoid stepping over that? Therefore, that sentence should be interpreted as that shadow has some reality. Otherwise, they will not prohibit you. So that is not the rule of Mimamsa doesn't permit that. Rule of Mimamsa says that this sentence is for prohibiting stepping over shadow. That's all. Tatra vaktavyam sakshadev. All right. So if you say that, this sentence also communicates the reality of shadow. Sakshadeva ut arthaditi. Does it say it indirectly in the same word or by arthapatti? Artha means arthapatti. They would not have said unless this was the reason. So does this sentence mean that it says that shadow is real? That's called sakshat. No. Ni arthantarnishtam vakyam. He says, no, this says you do not step over the shadow. It doesn't say that shadow is real. So, sakshat means in so many words the sentence doesn't say that. Ekasya vakyasya ubhayarthatve vakyabheda prasangaditi. Then we cannot say that this vakya says two things. That it prohibits stepping over the shadow and it says shadow is real. These two things one vakya cannot say because it violates the basic rule of communication. Mimamsa means communication. Mimamsakas have done a great work in analyzing communication. Each one of them a great contribution in our thinking process. Great. So even though we may not accept Mimamsaka's views about the reality, but we respect them very much for what they have contributed. So Vedanta respects everybody. We not accept everybody in totality. Just because I don't accept one part doesn't mean I disrespect him, I reject him. I respect him, but then respectfully beg to differ, So we respectfully beg to differ from them in certain aspect. Doesn't mean that we don't respect them. So Mimamsaka says that one vakya can have only one meaning, and therefore one vakya can have two meanings. That the vakya says you should not step over a shadow. It also says the shadow is real. No? So vakya bheda prasangat. Vakya bheda means one vakya will have two independent meanings. Then you do not know which one to take. So when you hear which one to take, you do not know. That means your vakya does not communicate. If the vakya or a sentence has more than one meaning, it doesn't communicate because the listener doesn't know what meaning to make out. Alright, arthat, by arthapatti. Meaning that because the Shruti says that you should not step over the shadow, therefore he would not have said unless the shadow was real. That's called arthapatti. Nadvitiya, that arthapatti also you cannot. Why? Nishedasya प्राप्ति मात्र सापेक्षत्वात् निषेध्य विषयादेः वस्तुत्व अभावे निषेध अनुपत्ति ही यत्र नियामक अभाव द्रष्टव्यम. So for अर्थापत्ति नियामक must be there. See, we say pino devadatta divana bhungte. Our observation is that the fat devadatta does not eat during the day. So therefore there is a nishedya. So there is a vishaya here. Therefore you say Devadatta must be eating at night. Therefore, so that pratrimatra sapekshatvat. So here the ascertainment is there in case of Devadatta that this fellow is eating at night, you ascertain. Why? Because there is evidence that Devadatta is getting fatter day by day. So what is there? Here also Nisheda negating is negating what for which there is an occasion. Prapti matra sapeksha. You should negate something for which there is an occasion to negate. Don't do that. So child is doing something, pulling out. Don't do that. So because there is a prapti, there is a prasanga or occasion to stop him from doing it or prevent him from doing something. So you eating something, don't eat like that, eat systematically. So the prasanga, you prohibit something or negate something when there is an occasion to negate. Sitting there, hey, don't eat like, but I'm not eating. So sometimes mothers, so the communication skills may not be there in this, and therefore they keep saying something to the child which is irrelevant. You should not negate something for which there is no occasion. But I never went there. I never did it. I never do that. This is the answer we get from children. Because apparently mother, the habit is just don't do it, keeps on always teaching the child, So don't do that, don't do that. But so because child may be doing various things which mother is, but that way she keeps on negating everything for which there is no occasion also. So negation can be there for prapti matra sapekshatvat. The negation depends upon the prapti, the occasion for negating. Sapeksha, negation depends upon the occurrence of, existence of an occurrence. Nishidya vishayade. So, but that does not mean that what is negated is real. Prapti is all that is required. For negating something, all that is required is that there is an occasion for that. It's not required that it is a real thing. So that you are prevented from or you are prohibited from stepping over a shadow is because you can step over. Therefore you say don't do that. That does not mean shadow has to be real. All that means, what that negation or nisheda or prohibition means is, because there is an occasion, prapti, that you may step over that shadow. So don't step over the shadow. That's all. Because stepping over shadow is praptam, is a possibility, therefore it is negated. You cannot negate that which is not possible, or you cannot, the negation doesn't mean anything else, it just means negation. Otherwise, we have to think, mother said this means what, this shadow is real, unreal. No, don't step over that, that's all. Don't eat this. But then, no further thing, don't eat it. Now, if you convey many things, then that fellow will not know, and he will take advantage, or sometimes happens. And so you told me this and you told me that, which was away of a different interpretation, then take advantage, And so poor mothers, lot of advantage always taken by children. Children are smarter, in some ways, and therefore mother may not be that smart in communication. She is more emotional, whatever it is. But the thing is that is why, so nishedasya praptimatra sapekshatvat. Nisheda or prohibition only requires prapti, the occasion for that event to happen. Nishedya vishayadehe vastutva bhave, that nishedya vastu, that shadow must be a real, then only you should not cross, that is not the condition required. For prohibiting this stepping over shadow, all it says is don't step over shadow. For that, the shadow must be real, therefore you should not prohibit, that condition is not there. Nisheda, so nishedhade, nishedya vishayade, vastutva nishedanupatti. That you prohibit him from stepping over shadow because shadow is real. There is no rule that it must be, the reality must be there, shadow is there. And whether real and unreal is not a consequence, you should not step over shadow because as revered as the person whose shadow it is. So niyamaka abhavat. So there is no niyamaka that what is prohibited must be real. Prohibition or negation only requires occasion for that to happen, and there is no condition it must be real. So the Smriti simply negates or prohibits you from stepping over a shadow. It doesn't require that shadow must be real for the Smriti to tell you that. This is Mimamsa communication. So Smriti statement cannot be taken to mean the reality of shadow. Iti. And then the discussion continues of, because that chaya was said to be real, so we have to address that. Otherwise, but how about that? After half an hour, after 10 days, but what about that thing, So that we have to address. Whatever is mentioned has to be addressed. What happened to Sita? She became a deer, then what happened to her, So after 5 years, he'll bring that question after listening to the whole Ramcharitmanas. So that is how whatever was stated has to be addressed. Otherwise, you keep on in your mind, like a worm, it keeps on going up and down, and so it will disturb you. So it has to be resolved. So that's being resolved here. Okay. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutrabhashya Krutau Vande Bhagavanto Punah Punah Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavad Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. Om Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.